Welcome back to episode 3. So, in the first episode, we covered the 11 things you must do before you leave the military. Second episode, the one just passed, we talked about the first 3 months and the research you need to do in terms of a resume, in terms of finding what you want to do as the next step in your career. Now, you probably think this episode is going to just build on that. No, we're going in a bit of a different direction, and it'll make sense why in a minute. So today what we're going to talk about is dropping the grey man persona. Now, anyone who's ever served, whether you use that exact term or not, you know what I'm talking about. And when I was in the army, this wasn't even a concept that you just picked up along the way. No, it was actually said to you at recruits. They literally said to us, you want to be the grey man. Don't stand out. Don't go for individual glory. It's not about you. It's about the team. It's always about the team. And that works 100% while you're in the service. And first responders tell me they have exactly the same, mindset. In the civilian world, in terms of getting a job, in terms of having a successful career, the grey man concept is going to be absolute poison. And you need to move away from it basically immediately. And I'll address it from the get-go. It's not that you suddenly need to start bragging about everything that you do. It's not like you suddenly need to become boisterous and arrogant. That's not the case at all. What you need to be able to do is articulate what value you bring. When you enter the civilian world, the civilian workplace, yeah, you're going to be working in a team, but people need to know what you bring to the table. And unless you can articulate that in a way that makes sense, then why is anyone going to hire you? Don't get me wrong, this is way more difficult than it sounds. It's simple, but it's incredibly difficult. To give you an idea, I went for a job interview, it was about 18 months ago now, for a more senior position in my company. And I was pretty happy with it. I thought I spoke fairly well. Afterwards, my boss said to me, you downplayed basically everything you did. She said, I know what you do and I know how valuable it is, but you don't get that across to the other interviewer at all. And to stress the importance of this, I've been out of the military now for 14 years. I know not to be the grey man anymore. I've been taking steps not to be the grey man anymore. And yet 14 years after leaving the military, it's still in my subconscious not to go into too much detail. Don't bore people. Don't keep listing off all your accomplishments. That's how hard it is. Now, I'm trying to remember back to when I was going for interviews straight after I left. I must have been way worse. I thought I was selling myself. I probably wasn't at all. So the first thing I need you to get through your head is you can't be the grey man anymore. Now, we can turn to our friend AI again for this. You got it to make you a resume. Now, you've already put in all those accomplishments, all those achievements. Now you can use it for something different. Copy and paste all that, put it back in the chat window and say, I need talking points for job interviews around my soft skills and hard skills. Give me an elevator pitch of what I bring to a company based on my experience. And what this will do, it will start giving you an idea of the value you do bring. Because here's the thing, you don't even know how much value you bring right now. And I'm going to give you the perfect example. So no one in the military is ever going to consider anything they did at recruit training an achievement. You're always going to subordinate whatever you did to someone else who's done something more. I call it the military hierarchy of suffering. You are never going to tell stories in the company of someone who's done more trips than you. If someone who's done lots of trips is in the company of someone who's won more medals than them, they're probably not going to talk about their stuff. It's always going to be subordinate. And again, that's poison if you're trying to make it in the civilian world. Because here's the thing, let's go all the way back to recruit training. Now, one of the things that stands out to me, was a navigation exercise because I was in the army. We did a night navigation exercise. And between my colleague and I, we made a mistake in our calculations. So we find ourselves basically completely off course in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, in the bush somewhere. And it must have been like 11 o'clock at night. And the time deadline was closing in for pass or failing that course. And so we just stopped. We worked out what our bearings were. We essentially completely redid the exercise, calculated it on the fly, taught flashlight in my mouth, trying to work through this. We worked through it and, we essentially ended up at the point where we needed to run to every single waypoint before we got to the finish line in the dark. Now, if you've deployed, if you're in an infantry unit, all that sort of stuff, and you hear that, you're like, yeah, so what? Like, that was in training. Why you even bring that up? To a civilian employer who has only ever worked in an office, do you think they are going to think that's not impressive? That's more than most people have ever done. And this is only at recruits. I think as well of Navy submariners. I watched an episode of, it was one of those military shows, and it was showing the selection course to get in to be a submariner. And one of the tests they had to pass was they were in a compartment that was flooding with water, and they had to fix everything to stop the flood of water before they drowned, essentially. Now, for a Navy submariner, that's just a test you have to pass. For any civilian employer, that is anxiety inducing just to hear about. And the fact that you did that just in training, that you went on to do things that are far more impressive than that, that is what I'm talking about when I say ditch the grey man. You have to think of every single thing you've accomplished, every single thing you've achieved, no matter how small it might be, and how that might look to someone on the outside. So hopefully that's given you an idea of what you can consider valuable, even the smallest thing. And so the next step up from that is being able to articulate why that's important. You're in a job interview and the hiring manager says, well, how do you go under pressure? Well, let me tell you about a time that we did a training exercise where I had to fix a compartment before it flooded with water and drowned me. All of a sudden, you've shot to the top of the list of all the candidates on that one subject alone. But you've got to be able to tie all these things together. And the only way you can start tying them together is to get it out of your head that what you've done isn't impressive in any sense. So again, what we're going to do with the AI is you're going to take all that and you're going to distill it down to a few points. Now, it's going to be industry specific, and this is where it's really important not to just do something generic. If you want to go and work on an oil rig in the Southern Ocean in horrible conditions, you are going to have to use completely different examples from your career than if you want to go to work in a high-performing finance office. Now, you might use the same examples, but you're going to have to tweak them substantially to make them apply to that industry. So to finish off this episode, what I want you to do is, again, spend some time with the AI. Go down the rabbit hole. Give it your experience and say, I'm going for a job in X field. How do I translate this into the right language? What soft skills should I be leaning on in the job interview? Just keep asking questions. This is going to be a learning experience for you, because there's the side of you that needs to break away psychologically from not being the grey man anymore. But then there's the other side that actually needs the practical tools to stop doing that. And the AI will help you. Now, again, if you have questions, if you're stuck, if you don't know the next step, put them in the chat window. If there's 100 questions in there, I'm more than happy to answer them. So if you get stuck, put your questions down there. I'm going to leave it there for today's episode. Again, please like, subscribe, send this to other active duty or veterans that you think this will help, and I'll see you in the next episode.